Our team from the Faculty of Technical Sciences, in collaboration with outside partners, has joined forces and created something that we call Market Pulse, which is basically a digital online tool. Its purpose is forecasting future demand, which is, let us say, a topic that causes a lot of problems and a lot of confusion in the industry. Not just small and medium enterprises, but also large enterprises have a lot of problems with solving these issues. So, as I said, we try to solve that problem with an online tool, which we will demonstrate in this presentation. That said, the main problem is with the demand and actually the market situation and everything that is going on in the market, especially in today's environment where we have a lot of situations which are very hard to predict. The influence on everyday inflation, everyday consumption of products, and everyday prices of groceries and so on eventually influences small and medium enterprises, and they face challenges with how to understand all these conditions and actually how to set up their operations according to that very hard to predict demand. So there are like two basic outcomes of this kind of, let us say, trying to figure out what the future demand is. Currently, or usually, companies overestimate or underestimate the market situations. Each of these situations, as a result, has a different effect on their operations. When we overestimate the future market situation, we usually order too much raw material, make a lot of inventory excess, and accordingly, maybe make a lot of final products, which at the end of the day, we cannot sell on the market. And we have a problem with what to do with the final products, which actually do not have any market usage for us. So it is only like lost money. On the other hand, the other situation is where we underestimate the market situations, which basically means that we supply products or services to the market at a level which is not sufficient for that market, meaning that we lose sales. If we had more of those products or services, we could earn more earnings and have better financial results, and we potentially open space for our competitors to fill that gap with their products. So each of these situations has its consequences, and it is very hard to balance between those two. In order to cope with this problem, we have a proposed solution. We call it Market Pulse. It is based on AI, like everything today is based on AI, of course. But this solution is not taking the power of all AI analytics. It is only taking the power of the mathematical side of AI, like the forecasting engines. It is designed to help SMEs, as I said, to somehow anticipate and to predict what the future market conditions will be. What are the benefits? Well, the benefits are pretty much straightforward. By creating this platform, we had several issues with how to deliver it to the end user, in this case, to the companies, so we made it as easy as possible. We made a user-friendly data upload, which is very important because from our experience, it is a problem to extract data from companies and to implement it in some software or online tool whatsoever. It is always one of the messiest tasks, and it is pretty much complicated. That is why we created a simple drag-and-drop application where companies can upload their Excel or CSV files or any kind of tabular data files. There are some guidelines in the application on what the structure of that data in those files should be, but it is quite simple to just drag and drop. After that, there are some automatic tasks which are carried out by the application which the user does not see. Actually, the first task is that data cleaning is provided, and the application is, let us say, cleaning the data and checking if all entries of the data are correct. Are there any, for example? Negative values or missing values? Are there any inconsistencies between dates and sales and so on? So up to that point, it is pretty much easy to use the application. There are only like select options for the user, which we will later see, and the user can easily click on different options and get different results. Those options include which forecasting model to choose, how far in advance we want to forecast, or another option is to download the results or to see the errors, and so on. There is some, let us say, limit to the application because this is only a prototype. And the limit is that it can only accept at least 3 years of data. Maybe a little more, but the real limit is 100 entries per file. So in some cases, if the data is daily, that would be 3 years. But if the data is on a different aggregation level, like on a weekly level or a monthly level, that can be a whole lot more years. So it depends on the aggregation level sent by the companies. If it is, as I said, daily, it is only 3 years. But if you take it, for example, on a monthly level, it can be maybe 10 or 15 years or even more. So what are the end benefits? Well, first of all, we have a better understanding of the market in which we do our business. So we have some kind of, let us say, better look at what the possible consumption of our products is, so we can align our activities needed to provide those products or services to the market. Another important benefit, which is closely correlated to this, is of course the reduction of operational inefficiencies caused by inaccurate market estimation, which is quite obvious. And As I said, the biggest benefit is actually predicting market demand, and that is the whole point of the application. Over here, we can see a figure of how the app is working. So the green line over here, which we can see, represents the consumption of the product on the market. On the x-axis, we can see different dates when that consumption was observed. And over here, we can see the results of the app, and that is like a future estimation of demand. While this red line represents the most probable value of future demand, the dashed red lines represent the possible, let us say, possible scenarios where the demand can fluctuate depending on different factors in the market. Those factors are usually related to economics, like inflation, consumer price indexes, trade wars, and so on. Now, I will show you briefly how the application looks. Here we have the main dashboard where we can choose one of our products. For example, let us take the product name Wonder 92. For this company where we are doing the piloting, we made their product names numerical in order to hide their real identity. When we click on the Forecasting tab, we see the first plot, which represents the data. The green line represents the historical data, while the solid red line represents the future forecast for 1 month ahead. The application offers a 3-step ahead forecast. So this red line shows what the AI predicts will happen on the market, and the dashed lines show the possible fluctuations from that prediction. The future values are displayed here. We also have notes from the AI. For instance, it flags that the first step has a higher forecast variance, meaning we should use that value cautiously. However, for the third step, it indicates a stable forecast, predicting high accuracy. Also, you can see the mathematical metrics that show exactly how accurate this future estimation is. We can interact with this plot. For example, by zooming in or simply downloading it if it is needed for a manager's report. We can also switch to any other product or select a different forecasting model to compare its results and predictions on the same data. An important feature for the user is the Import New Data tab. When clicked, it displays a short overview of how the data should look. When imported via a CSV or Excel file, there is also a downloadable template with fictional data, which shows exactly how the user needs to structure their files. To demonstrate, the user can click here. I have already loaded the first file I showed you. But we also have data from another company whose products we labeled as Product X. Let us try importing that company. As you can see, the data is imported, and we now have Product X. From here, we can choose different forecasting steps. That is a short introduction to the Market Pulse tool. Many companies will find great benefits in using it. If they need any support or have any questions, we are free to help them and are always open for collaboration.